The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with the usual mixture of excitement and disdain as Ambassador Thyra of the Zalani delegation approached the central podium. Her translucent blue skin shimmered under the artificial lights, and her 6 delicate limbs moved with a grace that belied the desperation in her large silver eyes. Around her, representatives from dozens of species filled the vast circular arena, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of alien diversity. "Honored delegates," Thyra began, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her people. "I come before you once again to request aid for my homeworld of Zephyria. Our situation grows more dire with each passing cycle." A collective groan rippled through the assembly. The Corvan representative, a massive reptilian creature with scales like armor plating, shifted impatiently in his specialized seating. "Ambassador Thyra, we have heard this plea 17 times in the past standard year. The answer remains unchanged." Thyra's silver eyes dimmed slightly, but she pressed on. "Our planet's core is destabilizing. The magnetic field that protects us from cosmic radiation continues to weaken. Without technological intervention, my people will face extinction within 200 rotations." The insectoid delegate from the hive worlds clicked her mandibles in what passed for laughter among her species. Perhaps extinction is the natural course for a species so fundamentally flawed in their evolution. Murmurs of agreement echoed throughout the chamber. The Zalani were known throughout the galaxy as the most fragile sentient species ever discovered. Their home world of Zephyria orbited a dying star, and their bodies had evolved in such perfect harmony with their environment that they could not survive anywhere else. Their bones were hollow, like a bird's. Their skin was permeable to allow for efficient gas exchange in their planet's unique atmosphere, and their nervous systems were so sensitive that they could detect the slightest changes in electromagnetic fields. The Zalani require specific atmospheric conditions, precise gravitational forces, and an exact electromagnetic frequency to survive, stated the Kronar delegate, his voice booming through universal translators. Even our most advanced terraforming technology cannot replicate these conditions artificially. To save your species would require resources equivalent to building 50 new worlds. Thyra's hands trembled as she clutched the datapad containing her people's research. "We have developed theoretical solutions, but we lack the industrial capacity and raw materials to implement them. Our physiology prevents us from working in the harsh environments necessary for large-scale construction." The ethereal representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, pulsed with colors indicating skepticism. "Every species in this council has faced extinction events. We survived through adaptation, strength, and resourcefulness. The Zalani have had millions of years to develop hardiness, yet they remain as delicate as when they first achieved sentience. That is precisely why they should be allowed to fade," added the Thrakari war chief, his 4 arms gesturing dismissively. "Natural selection should not be artificially circumvented. The strong survive, the weak perish. This is the fundamental law of the universe." Ambassador Thyra felt her hope crumbling like the ancient structures on her dying world. She had spent the last 5 years traveling between star systems, pleading with every major galactic power for assistance. Each had given her the same response. The Zalani were too fragile, too resource-intensive to save, and their extinction would not significantly impact galactic affairs. "Furthermore," continued the Corvan representative, "the Zalani contribute nothing of value to galactic civilization. They cannot serve in military capacities due to their physical limitations. They cannot work in industrial settings because of their environmental requirements. Their artistic expressions, while aesthetically pleasing to some, hold no practical value. What incentive do any of our species have to invest in their preservation?" The words struck Thyra like physical blows. It was true that her people had never been warriors or builders in the traditional sense. The Zalani were philosophers, artists, and theorists. They created beautiful music that could only be heard in their planet's unique acoustic environment. They wrote poetry that required understanding of electromagnetic harmonics to fully appreciate. They had developed mathematical theorems that described the relationship between consciousness and quantum mechanics. But these discoveries seemed worthless to species focused on expansion and dominance. Perhaps, suggested the hive representative, the Zalani could be relocated to a suitable environment, a biodome or artificial habitat? Thyra shook her head sadly. We have tried. The complexity of our homeworld's ecosystem cannot be replicated. We are not just dependent on atmospheric conditions, but on the specific microorganisms in our soil, the particular frequency of our star's radiation, and even the gravitational effects of our moon's unusual orbit. Remove any of these elements, and our biology fails. Then your species is an evolutionary dead end, declared the Thrakari war chief with finality. The galaxy has no obligation to preserve every failed experiment of natural selection. As the council session drew to a close with yet another unanimous rejection of aid, Thyra noticed a new delegate in the observers section. The being was relatively small by galactic standards, bipedal, with strange pale skin and unusual hair covering only the top of its head. She had heard rumors of this new species called humans, recently discovered on the edge of the galaxy. They were supposedly primitive, having only just achieved faster-than-light travel, but they had requested observer status in the council proceedings. The human delegate approached her as the other representatives filed out of the chamber. His face showed something Thyra had rarely seen from other species when they looked at her kind: genuine concern. Ambassador Thyra, he said in heavily accented galactic standard, I am Captain Michael Chen of the Terran Federation. I couldn't help but overhear your situation. Thyra looked at this strange new being with a mixture of curiosity and exhaustion. I appreciate your interest, Captain Chen, but if the major galactic powers cannot assist us, I doubt a recently spacefaring species could offer much help. Captain Chen smiled, an expression that translated as warmth across most species. You might be surprised. Humanity has a saying, never say never. We've heard about your people's plight, and we'd like to learn more. Would you be willing to share your research data with our scientists? Thyra hesitated. The humans seemed sincere, but she had been disappointed so many times before. Still, what did she have to lose? I suppose there would be no harm in allowing your people to examine our situation, though I must warn you, far more advanced civilizations than yours have declared our case hopeless. That's what makes it interesting, Chen replied. Sometimes being new to the galactic community means we haven't learned what's supposed to be impossible yet. 3 days later, Thyra received a message that would change everything. Captain Chen requested another meeting, and when they met in the human delegation's modest quarters, his excitement was palpable. Ambassador Thyra, after reviewing your data, our scientists have some questions. Your people's sensitivity to electromagnetic fields. You've always treated it as a weakness, haven't you? Of course, Thyra replied, confused. It means we cannot function near most galactic technology. Our nervous systems are overwhelmed by the electromagnetic interference produced by standard faster-than-light drives, industrial equipment, even basic computing systems. But what if that sensitivity could be turned into an asset? Chen asked, his eyes bright with possibility. Your people can detect electromagnetic fluctuations at levels that our most sensitive instruments cannot measure. Do you realize what this means? Thyra shook her head, not understanding where this conversation was leading. Navigation, Chen said simply. Space is crisscrossed with natural electromagnetic currents, gravitational eddies, and quantum fluctuations that create a kind of invisible highway system. Most species navigate by brute force, jumping blindly through hyperspace and burning enormous amounts of energy to reach their destinations. But your people could potentially read these natural currents like a map. The implications began to dawn on Thyra. You think our biological sensitivity could be useful for space travel? Not just useful, revolutionary. And that's just one application. Your people's ability to detect minute changes in atmospheric composition could make them invaluable for terraforming projects. Your sensitivity to gravitational fields could revolutionize our understanding of stellar mechanics. For the first time in years, Thyra felt a spark of hope. But our physical fragility remains a problem. We still cannot survive away from Zephyria for extended periods. Chen's smile widened. That's where human engineering comes in. We may not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but we have something else. Stubbornness. When other species see an impossible problem, humans see an interesting challenge. We've reviewed your environmental requirements and we think we can help. How? Thyra asked, hardly daring to believe. Mobile habitats, not stationary biodomes like other species suggested, but fully mobile, self-contained ecosystems that could travel with your people wherever they're needed. Ships that aren't just vessels, but actual pieces of Zephyria that can move through space. Thyra's silver eyes widened. The resource requirements would be astronomical. Even if such a thing were possible, why would your people invest so much effort in helping us? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, then spoke with a conviction that surprised her. Because that's what humans do. We help people who need help. We don't calculate cost-benefit ratios when someone is facing extinction. We don't abandon the weak because they're inconvenient. Every human civilization in our history has had stories about helping the defenseless, protecting those who can't protect themselves. He paused, then added, Besides, we've learned that the most valuable people are often the ones others consider worthless. Some of humanity's greatest discoveries came from individuals that society had written off. We have a feeling your people have contributions to make that the galaxy hasn't even imagined yet. As Thyra left the meeting, her mind raced with possibilities she hadn't dared consider in years. For the first time since her planet's crisis began, she felt something other than despair. The humans were strange. That much was certain. They were newer to the galactic community than almost any other species. They lacked the advanced technology of the major powers, and they had no obvious benefit to gain from helping the Zalani. But they had something else, something that had been notably absent in all her dealings with other species. They seemed to actually care. The next few weeks would determine whether human ambition could match human compassion, and whether the galaxy's most fragile species had finally found the allies they desperately needed. As Thyra prepared her report to send back to Zephyria, she allowed herself to feel something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Hope. Captain Chen stood in the observation deck of the human research vessel, Endeavour, watching as the first prototype mobile habitat slowly took shape in the orbital shipyard. 3 months had passed since his initial meeting with Ambassador Thera, and what had started as a theoretical discussion had become humanity's largest engineering project to date. Dr. Sarah Kim, the project's lead scientist, approached with a tablet full of readings. The atmospheric processors are working better than expected, Michael. We've managed to replicate Zephyria's air composition to within 99.7% accuracy. What about the electromagnetic field generators? Chen asked, his eyes never leaving the construction outside. That's where things get interesting, Dr. Kim replied, her excitement evident. The Zalani consultant team has been invaluable. Their ability to feel electromagnetic fluctuations in real time means they can guide our adjustments with precision our instruments can't match. It's like having a living calibration device. Ambassador Thyra herself emerged from the habitat's test chamber, her blue skin glowing with health in a way Chen hadn't seen since they first met. 3 other Zalani accompanied her, members of the first volunteer group who had agreed to help with the project, despite the risks of leaving their homeworld. "The resonance frequency is perfect," Thyra reported, her musical voice carrying notes of amazement. "I never thought I would feel the harmony of home while floating in deep space. Your engineers have accomplished something that was declared impossible by dozens of advanced species." Dr. Kim grinned. "Wait until you see what we have planned for the propulsion system." "Show her, Michael." Chen activated a holographic display showing the habitat's design. Unlike traditional spacecraft, the mobile habitat looked organic, almost alive. Its exterior was composed of a crystalline matrix that could flex and adapt to different stress conditions, while the interior featured carefully crafted environments that mimicked various regions of Zephyria. "The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking like human engineers and started thinking like gardeners," Chen explained. "Instead of trying to build a ship that happens to carry an environment, we built an environment that happens to be able to travel through space." Thyra studied the hologram with wonder. "But the energy requirements for faster-than-light travel while maintaining our ecosystem." "That's where your people's special abilities come into play," Dr. Kim interjected. "Traditional FTL drives fight against the natural currents of space-time. But if we can map those currents using Zalani electromagnetic sensitivity, we can design a propulsion system that works with them instead of against them. We're calling it current riding technology." One of the other Zalani, an elderly scientist named Kef, whose silver eyes held the wisdom of centuries, stepped forward. "This current riding, it would require precise navigation abilities that only my people possess. You are suggesting a true partnership, not merely a rescue operation." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "Humanity provides the engineering and industrial capacity. The Zalani provide navigational expertise and environmental knowledge that could revolutionize space travel for everyone." The project attracted attention from across the galaxy, though not all of it was positive. The Galactic Council had initially viewed humanity's efforts with amused skepticism. When it became clear that the humans were making actual progress, skepticism turned to concern. Admiral Vorth of the Kronar fleet arrived at the construction site with what he claimed was a routine inspection. His massive vessel dwarfed the human ships, its dark hull bristling with weapons that could reduce the entire project to debris in minutes. "Captain Chen," Admiral Vorth's voice boomed through the communication system, "I am here to assess this experiment of yours. The Council has concerns about introducing untested technology into galactic space lanes." Chen met the Admiral in the Endeavor's main conference room, with Thyra and Dr. Kim present as witnesses. The Kronar Admiral had to duck to fit through human-sized doorways, his massive reptilian form making the space feel cramped and threatening. "Admiral, our technology has been thoroughly tested," Chen said calmly. "All safety protocols exceed galactic standards." "Safety is not my primary concern," Admiral Vorth replied, his predatory eyes fixed on Thyra. "The Zalani were deemed unsuitable for galactic integration by the Council. This artificial preservation of their species contradicts natural selection and sets a dangerous precedent." Thyra's skin paled, but she spoke with quiet dignity. "Admiral, my people ask for nothing more than the chance to contribute to galactic civilization. We are not seeking charity." Admiral Vorth's laugh was harsh and grating. "Contribute? Your species' only notable characteristic is fragility. What possible contribution could you make?" Dr. HFY Kim activated the conference room's holographic display, showing star charts that looked unlike anything the Admiral had seen before. Instead of the traditional point-to-point navigation routes used by galactic civilization, these charts showed flowing lines of energy that curved and twisted through space like rivers. "These are electromagnetic current maps generated using Zalani sensory data," Dr. Kim explained. "In the past month, our test runs using current riding technology have reduced travel time between star systems by an average of 40%, while using 60% less energy than conventional FTL drives. The Admiral leaned forward, studying the charts with obvious interest despite his hostility. Impossible. Our best navigation computers cannot detect patterns at this resolution. Because your computers are looking for the wrong things, Thyra said quietly. What your instruments read as empty space is actually filled with currents and eddies of electromagnetic energy. My people feel these currents the way your people might feel wind or water current. Admiral Vorth was silent for a long moment, then spoke with reluctant respect. If these navigation improvements can be verified and shared with the Galactic Fleet, it would revolutionize space travel. The strategic advantages alone would be shared freely with any species that requests them, Chen interrupted. This isn't about gaining military advantage. It's about improving life for everyone in the galaxy. The Admiral's expression shifted to confusion. You would give away such valuable technology? What do you gain from helping these fragile beings? Chen exchanged glances with Thyra before answering. We gain friends, Admiral. We gain knowledge. We gain the satisfaction of knowing that we've helped prevent an extinction that would have made the galaxy a poorer place. After the Admiral departed, promising to report the navigation discoveries to the Council, Dr. Kim approached Chen with concerns written across her face. Michael, sharing this technology could put us at a strategic disadvantage. The other species might use advanced navigation capabilities against us in the future. Chen nodded thoughtfully. It's possible. But if we start hoarding knowledge and treating allies as potential enemies, we become just another galactic power focused on dominance instead of cooperation. That's not who we want to be. Meanwhile, the construction project continued to expand. Word of the human-Zalani partnership spread throughout the galaxy, attracting attention from unexpected sources. Scientists from minor species that had been overlooked by the major galactic powers began to arrive, offering their expertise and requesting to join the project. The Whisperkin, a species of energy beings who communicated through quantum fluctuations, proved particularly valuable. Their ability to work directly with electromagnetic fields complemented Zalani sensory abilities perfectly. The crystal builders of Nexus Prime contributed their expertise in growing rather than constructing technology, while the deep space nomads called the Wanderers shared centuries of knowledge about navigating the galaxy's more dangerous regions. Look what we've started, Thyra said to Chen as they watched delegates from a dozen species working together in the shipyard. A coalition of the overlooked and dismissed, united by human compassion. Chen smiled. Maybe that's what the galaxy really needed. Not another dominant empire, but a group willing to prove that cooperation is stronger than competition. The prototype mobile habitat was finally ready for its maiden voyage, named New Zephyria. By its Zalani inhabitants, it would travel to the edge of the galaxy to test its systems in the harsh environment of deep space. But more importantly, it would serve as proof that the galaxy's most fragile species could not only survive away from their homeworld, but could thrive and contribute to galactic civilization. As the New Zephyria powered up its current-riding engines, every sensor in the shipyard registered the strange, beautiful harmony of its departure. Unlike the violent spatial distortion created by conventional FTL drives, the Zalani navigation system created something that looked almost like music made visible, waves of energy that danced through space in perfect rhythm with the universe's hidden currents. "Magnificent," whispered Ambassador Thyra, tears streaming down her translucent cheeks. "My people are no longer bound to die with our dying world." Chen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your people were never meant to die, Thyra. They were meant to help the rest of us learn how to truly live." But even as they celebrated this victory, both Chen and Thyra knew that the real test was yet to come. The Galactic Council was still divided on the Zalani question. and not all species were pleased with humanity's intervention. The success of the new Zephyria would either prove that cooperation could overcome prejudice, or it would paint a target on both humans and Zalani as dangerous disruptors of the galactic order. The next phase of their journey would determine not just the survival of one species, but the future of cooperation in a galaxy that had grown comfortable with the idea that only the strong deserved to survive. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's thousand-year history. Representatives from every major species had gathered not to debate policy or trade agreements, but to address what many were calling the greatest threat to galactic stability since the Void Wars. The threat wasn't an invading army or a cosmic disaster. It was cooperation. Admiral Vorth stood at the central podium, his massive form radiating authority as he addressed the assembly. Honorable delegates, in the 6 months since the humans began their interference with natural selection, we have witnessed unprecedented disruption to established galactic order. The holographic display behind him showed a three-dimensional map of known space. But instead of the traditional political boundaries, it was overlaid with flowing streams of color representing the electromagnetic currents that Zalani navigators could now chart with perfect accuracy. These navigation improvements have reduced shipping costs by half across the galaxy, Admiral Vorth continued. Trade routes that took weeks now take days. Energy expenditure for interstellar travel has dropped by 60%. While these developments might seem beneficial, they represent a fundamental disruption to the economic balance that has maintained peace for centuries. The ethereal representative pulsed with agitated colors. More concerning is the precedent being set. Minor species throughout the galaxy are now demanding technological assistance to overcome their evolutionary limitations. The humans have convinced them that weakness should be rewarded rather than allowed to naturally fade. From the observer section, Captain Chen listened with growing concern. Beside him, Ambassador Thyra trembled slightly, her sensitive nervous system picking up the electromagnetic signatures of agitation and hostility from the assembled delegates. The economic implications alone are staggering, added the representative from the banking worlds, a species that had evolved to calculate profit with mathematical precision. If every struggling species receives technological assistance, the resource allocation models that govern galactic commerce will collapse. Who will perform essential but dangerous labor if every species can demand safer alternatives? The Hive representative clicked her mandibles in agreement. Furthermore, the human insistence on sharing technological advances freely undermines the incentive structure that drives innovation. Why should advanced species invest in research and development if humans will simply give away the results? Chen requested permission to address the council, which was granted with obvious reluctance. As he approached the podium, he felt the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon him, most of them hostile. Honorable delegates, Chen began, I understand your concerns about economic disruption, but perhaps we should consider the benefits that cooperation has brought to the galaxy. He activated his own holographic display, showing data that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Since the implementation of Zalani navigation techniques, shipping accidents have decreased by 78%. The improved efficiency has freed up resources that were previously wasted on fuel and lost cargo. Rather than destroying the economy, cooperation has made it more efficient and more profitable for everyone involved. But at what cost? Demanded the Thrakari war chief. Your people have elevated the weakest species in the galaxy to a position of strategic importance. The Zalani now control navigation for half the major shipping routes. What happens when they decide to use this leverage against their former detractors? Ambassador Thyra rose from her seat in the observer section, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators despite its gentle tone. War Chief, my people have no desire for revenge or dominance. We seek only to contribute positively to galactic civilization. The war chief's 4 arms gestured dismissively. Spoken like someone who has never held real power. Power corrupts regardless of species. The galaxy learned long ago that strength must be balanced against strength. Your artificial elevation disrupts this balance. Does it? Chen asked. Or does it reveal that our understanding of strength was incomplete? He changed the holographic display to show a series of recent events that had occurred across the galaxy. In the outer rim, a plague that had threatened to wipe out 3 colonies was stopped when Zalani atmospheric specialists detected the pathogen's electromagnetic signature before it could spread. Near the galactic core, a stellar collapse that would have destroyed a major shipping hub was predicted weeks in advance by Zalani gravitational sensors, allowing for evacuation and the deployment of stellar stabilization technology. In each of these cases, Chen continued, the Zalani provided early warning that prevented disasters. Their sensitivity isn't a weakness to be overcome. It's a gift that makes the entire galaxy safer. The Corvan representative stood, his voice booming through the chamber. Even if we accept that the Zalani provide some value, this does not justify the precedent you have set. Already 17 minor species have petitioned for similar assistance. The fragile aquatic species from Sector 7 wants terraforming assistance. The crystalline entities from the Dead Zone request help with radiation shielding. Where does it end? Chen was quiet for a moment, then spoke with conviction that surprised even himself. It doesn't end. That's the point. A civilization's strength isn't measured by how effectively it eliminates weakness, but by how well it protects and nurtures those who need protection. The declaration sent a wave of shocked murmurs through the assembly. Such a philosophy was contrary to everything the Galactic Council had stood for since its founding. Dr. Kim, who had been monitoring communications from the human fleet, approached Chen with urgent news. Michael, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The minor species are organizing. They're calling it the Cooperation Coalition, and they're implementing their own assistance programs based on our model. The news sent the council chamber into chaos. If minor species began helping each other without oversight from the major powers, the carefully maintained hierarchy that governed galactic civilization would collapse. This madness must be stopped, declared the ethereal representative, its crystalline shell pulsing with angry reds and oranges. The humans have infected the galaxy with their naive idealism, and it threatens everything we have built. But Admiral Vorth surprised everyone by speaking against immediate action. Before we act rashly, we should examine the full scope of these developments. My intelligence reports indicate that the Cooperation Coalition is already more powerful than any individual member species. They share resources, knowledge, and defensive capabilities in ways we have never seen before. The Admiral activated a new display showing the Coalition's growing influence. Species that had been struggling to survive were now thriving under mutual assistance programs. The aquatic species from Sector 7 had developed new water purification techniques that were being shared with desert worlds. The crystalline entities had created radiation shielding that was protecting archaeological expeditions in dangerous regions of space. More importantly, Admiral Vorth continued, they have adopted the human principle of free technological sharing. Any breakthrough made by one coalition member is immediately shared with all others. Their rate of innovation is accelerating beyond anything we have achieved through competition-based development. Ambassador Thyra stood again, her voice carrying a strength that hadn't been there 6 months earlier. Honorable delegates, you speak of precedent and balance as if they were natural laws. But precedents can be changed, and balance can be redefined. My people faced extinction because you believed that weakness should not be preserved. But we have proven that what you called weakness was actually an unrecognized form of strength. She activated her own holographic display, showing the current state of Zephyria. The planet's magnetic field had stabilized using technology developed through the human-Zalani partnership. The dying star that threatened their world was now being studied by coalition scientists who had identified ways to extend its life by millions of years. The coalition you fear is not a threat to galactic civilization, Thyra continued. It is galactic civilization evolving into something better, something that judges value by contribution rather than dominance, that measures strength by how well we care for each other rather than how effectively we compete. The debate continued for hours, with delegates arguing passionately on both sides. But as the discussion progressed, it became clear that the old order was already changing. The Cooperation Coalition controlled too much trade, too much innovation, and too much territory to be suppressed without devastating galactic war. Finally, the vote was called. By a narrow margin, the Galactic Council voted to officially recognize the Cooperation Coalition as a legitimate governing body, with the same rights and privileges as any major galactic power. It was a decision that would reshape the galaxy forever. As delegates filed out of the chamber, many still grumbling about the precedent being set, Admiral Vorth approached Chen and Thera. Captain Ambassador, I want you to know that my vote was not based on sentiment. The coalition represents the future whether we accept it or not. The question is whether we adapt to that future or become irrelevant to it. Chen extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Admiral, we hope you'll consider joining us. The coalition could benefit from Kronar military expertise, especially in protecting vulnerable worlds from natural disasters. Admiral Vorth studied the offered hand for a moment, then clasped it with his own massive claw. Perhaps it is time for the Kronar to learn new definitions of strength. 3 years later, Captain Chen stood in the observation deck of the coalition flagship, Unity, watching as the first joint galactic expedition prepared to depart for the Andromeda Galaxy. The expedition fleet included vessels from 47 different species, each contributing their unique abilities to humanity's most ambitious exploration project yet. Ambassador Thyra approached, her appearance transformed by her new role as the Coalition's chief navigator. Her translucent skin now bore intricate tattoos that helped her interpret electromagnetic fields with even greater precision, and her eyes held a confidence that spoke of species that had found its true calling. The long-range sensors are detecting potential colony sites in 17 different star systems, she reported. And Captain, the scouts report that we're not the first ones to make this journey. The electromagnetic traces suggest that the void entities may have settlements in Andromeda. The void entities were a mystery that had puzzled the galaxy for centuries. Ancient beings who had vanished from known space millennia ago, leaving behind only ruins and legends. If they still existed in Andromeda, first contact would require all the diplomatic and scientific expertise the Coalition could muster. Then we'll need every advantage we can get, Chen replied. Good thing we learned not to judge value by appearance or strength by traditional measures. Dr. Kim joined them, her hair now silver with age, but her enthusiasm undiminished. The quantum resonance detectors are online, and the Whisper-Kin navigators report optimal current conditions for the jump. We're as ready as we'll ever be. As the massive fleet engaged its current-riding engines, space around them began to sing with the harmonic frequencies that had become the signature of Coalition technology. The jump to Andromeda would take them farther from home than any galactic expedition had ever traveled. But they weren't traveling as conquerors or competitors. They were traveling as a family. You know, Chen said as the stars began to shift into the familiar patterns of FTL travel, when we first met, you thought humanity couldn't help because we were too new to the galaxy. I think our newness was exactly what made us able to help. Thyra smiled, the expression carrying harmonics that her species used to express deep contentment. You hadn't yet learned what was supposed to be impossible. But more than that, you hadn't learned to stop caring about people just because helping them was difficult. As the Unity and its fleet disappeared into the space between galaxies, they carried with them a simple message that had transformed galactic civilization. In a universe full of wonders, the greatest strength of all is the willingness to help those who need help, regardless of what others might think is practical or possible. Behind them, the galaxy continued to change. Species that had once seemed destined for extinction now thrived under coalition protection. Technologies that had been hoarded by major powers were freely shared. And in the council chambers, where the Galani had once pleaded desperately for aid, new voices now spoke for species that had never been given a chance to contribute to galactic civilization. The revolution that began with humanity's refusal to abandon one fragile species had become something greater than anyone could have imagined. Proof that the universe was big enough for everyone, if only its inhabitants were brave enough to care for each other.